What's happening in Sterile Processing Universe? It's Hank Balch here with Beyond Clean, and you are watching the first episode ever of Hot Takes with Hank Balch. This is the first episode, but it may very well be the last. Let's just see how this first one goes. Thank you for taking a couple moments out of your busy Monday afternoon to spend with me with an unscripted discussion about the challenges and opportunities that are facing the sterile processing universe. If you don't know me, my background is a frontline sterile processing technician. I have sweated drops of bullets and I've sweated bullets of sweat and blood in decontam underneath PPE, and I have sweated the same drops of bullets and sweat. What is this bullet thing today? I have stressed out in front of screaming surgeons who have a patient on the table and they're frustrated about a breakdown in the process of sterile processing. I've been right there in the middle of assembling a surgical tray, and that one instrument that I know the doctor needs is not in the tray, and I can't find it anywhere in the department. The breakdown happened somewhere, and now it's up to me to figure it out. I've been there. I've learned a lot of lessons, but even more important than that, we talk to folks every single week through the Beyond Clean podcast, through the Beyond Clean advisory group, and through the massive Beyond Clean network that we've built. And we learn a lot about what's going on in the industry, the good, but also the bad and the ugly. And in this episode of Hot Takes, we're going to talk a little bit about that challenge around trust and quality in our departments in particular. I'm going to get on a soapbox that I've talked about before, but this will be a first for this show because it is the first episode. Before we get rolling too far in, though, I want to give a shout out to everyone who's tuning in. So if you're live with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, please drop your name and your location in the comments section below, and we'll give you a little shout out. As you're doing that, I know there's a lot of the network out there that's looking for a job currently in the sterile processing space. And we got a lot of folks out there looking for great high quality hires to bring into their hospital or to bring in to work for your sterile processing brand and company. Because of that, I want to do a little matchmaking maybe in the comments section today. So in a moment, I'm going to give all of you guys that are looking for a job the opportunity to give your own little shout out in the comment section and say, hey, I'm available. You can be specific. You can say, I'm available and I'd like this kind of job. I want to be remote. I'm looking for a part-time side hustle, side gig. And likewise on the manufacturer side, if you want to post a job or if you're in the hospital setting, if you've got a link to a job posting that you want to put in the comment section below, I'm going to give you an opportunity to do just that, to tap into this active network of sterile processing folks that we're trying our darndest to create through the Beyond Clean network. As we get going there, let me give a shout out to a couple of folks here that are already starting to tune in and represent. Jake McHugh. Hey, Jake, pleasure always seeing you, sir. He says, first episode of 100. We'll see how that goes. Yes, my man Lars. Okay, good to hear from you again, Lars. Thanks for tuning in, brother. I believe he's tuning in all the way from the Netherlands. It's a little bit later out there, but thanks for saying hi. Of course, Jake is tuning in from Jacksonville. Got Jesse here from New Jersey. Katie's tuning in from Milwaukee. And actually, guys, I know Katie is on the market for one of those awesome jobs that I know are available out there. So just stay tuned and get connected with Katie out there and hook her up with her dream job. Hey, shout out from my brother Hayes. He's on the Power Supply podcast. For anyone who's tuning in that's in the supply chain network, and if you're into podcasting, go check out those guys at Power Supply. You can track them down through LinkedIn. They got a mobile app along with Gary Skinner and the Beyond Clean co-founder, Justin Poulin. All right, we've got a couple more here. I'm going to give some shout outs as folks continue tuning in. We got Waleed from, looks like Iowa, if I've got that acronym right. Oh, Mark Copeland. Hey, Mark. Always a pleasure to see you tuning in from Hershey. Carlos from York Hospital, Pennsylvania. Got a lot of the PA folks. Oh, but we got a Texan representing here. What's up, man? Hey, Nathan Cody, local here to the Beyond Clean World headquarters here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm going to do a couple more shout outs here, and then we'll get into some of the content. I got a shout out here from Nicholas from the Mile High City. What's up, Nick? I'm assuming that's Denver. Forgive me, my geography's not too hot. Okay, so let's get in to it. Let me pull this up here, and I'm going to give you a little view of what got started here. So this is not the latest in the numbers here, but I did a poll on LinkedIn, started last week, and it asked a very important question. Do you have a major quality concern about another sterile processing department in your city? You know, pretty simple question, right? I'm not asking about your department because I understand a lot of folks are hesitant to talk too much about their own department challenges. So we started with the easy one and we said, hey, is there another department out there that you've kind of got a concern about? And if so, what would that concern be? So here's the breakdown on the screen. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about this, and I'll bring this graphic back up here in a second, but just want to highlight something. Over 95%, if you're reading this right, 95% of the respondents to this question do not, I repeat, do not trust every sterile processing department in their city. 95% of respondents do not trust every sterile processing department in their city in terms of quality. That is a striking stat. If you're not kind of troubled by that, you should be. We're going to talk a little bit about why I think that is here in a moment and bring in maybe a little bit of your perspectives from the audience perspectives in the comments section about why you think there is so little trust from the insiders in this industry as it relates to our counterparts across our cities and, of course, across the globe. Before we get going too far, though, I do want to give this opportunity right now. Before we get into all the challenges, I want to talk about the opportunities to get hired in this space. If you're looking for a job right this moment, if you're available and you want to tap into the network that's viewing this live feed or will view the video after the fact, comment with your availability and what you're looking for in the comments section below. And even if you love your job, you know, there's nothing wrong with kind of seeing what's out there, right? So you can even say, hey, I love my job, but I wouldn't turn down, you know, six-figure opportunity to work from home, for instance. Okay. So use this opportunity if you're looking for a job, guys, to post your opportunity or your need and availability below. And if you're hiring, if you're a manufacturer or if you're one of those managers out there that are just trying so hard to find high quality sterile processing technicians and supervisors, post your job posting in the comment section below. It'd be great if you want to get your official hospital posting and put a link there so folks can go directly to that link to apply if they're tuning in. All right. So let's pull this back up here and get to the meat of our discussion today around quality concern. So again, I asked this question last week. We've had a little over 100 respondents as of last night. There's probably a handful more today. And the question again was, do you have major quality concerns about another sterile processing department in your city? Okay. Over half, 53% said yes. I know enough about that other department in my city that I personally would never go there. 53% said, yep, I know too much. never going to go to that hospital that's across the street. That data point right there, folks, that 53%, all by itself is enough to stop, all right, and have this whole conversation on what we know that patients do not know out there getting surgical care. Because evidently, all of us know enough about the hospital across town to publicly answer this survey and say, yep, I know one, never going to go there. The question is, or maybe the challenge is for all of us, is what about all of those patients that are getting their care at that facility? Because there's a bunch of them, right? They've got a full surgery schedule, likely today, churning through. And whatever your reasons are, and we'll talk about some of those maybe in the comments section, but whatever those reasons are that you have said, over half of you, I would never go there. Those patients obviously do not know, because if they knew, they would never go there either. Am I right? Let me pull this back up on the screen real quick. I want to go back to that 95% metric that we kind of kicked this off. When you add all that up and subtract the I trust every sterile processing department in my city, and then you look back and say, okay, if only 5% trust everyone, 95% do not trust every department in their city. Let me give you a little example of what that could mean in another industry. And I know it's cliche to compare the healthcare industry with the airline industry, but I'm going to do it. All right. It's added to the list of hot takes that you're going to get on this episode. Imagine if we did a poll of pilots for commercial airlines. We asked them, hey, for the other pilots, not your plane, obviously, like you trust yourself, but for the other planes that are in the air that are flying out of this airport today, let's just say BWI, right down the road from us here in Baltimore, for all those other planes, do you have any major quality concerns about those other planes in the air? Imagine if 95% of those pilots said, yeah, I don't trust them all. What? The pilots, 95% of them, this is not a small metric, right? This is not 5% say, I don't trust. 95, nearly every pilot polled said, I do not trust the other airplanes at my airport. Shocking. And yet, that is what this poll is saying about our industry in the US in sterile processing. 95% of us on the inside say that we know enough about the quality of these other departments that we don't trust them. That there should be a headline in every major newspaper tomorrow morning talking about the quality breakdowns in this industry because of that, because the ones who know, the ones who are out there are you doing the job day in and day out, who have been in some of these departments that you don't trust. You know so much, and the patient knows so little. Shocking. Okay, I'm going to pull this back up one more time here. Outside of that 50+% that say, yes, I know enough and I would never go there, we got these interesting two stats here in the middle. 22% of y'all said, well, I don't know enough about the other departments in my city, but that also scares me. Okay, 22%. That's almost a quarter of y'all said, yeah, I don't know enough, but it's a little scary. Well, for a kind of personal example here, a couple of years ago, I had my appendix out. I had just returned from a consulting trip out in Montana. I got back to San Antonio. The next day, I was taking a walk with my family, and my stomach started hurting, and it was getting kind of painful to walk, and then it was getting a little painful to breathe. And then I remember laying down that evening, and I told my wife, yeah, I may have to drive myself to the ER if this doesn't get any better in the middle of the night. And that's what I ended up doing. Well, lo and behold, the urgent care that I go to ended up taking me to a hospital that I did not work at, and that I had never met the manager, and I'd never been in the department. I knew nothing about this department. But I was in that 22% category of I'm unsure, but that doesn't make me feel good. That actually makes me feel bad and anxious because of everything else I know about our industry and about how hard it is for these departments to get quality right. So let me just stop there and say this, because there's going to be some folks that are watching this saying, Hank, like you're just like beating us up, like what's going on? Like you're just bringing up all the challenges, what about all the good things? Yeah, there's a lot of good things, guys, and we talk about them all the time on Beyond Clean. We love to promote all the awesome things that our departments and our industries are out there doing. We love to be a part of that, but we're not only going to talk about the good, because if we don't talk about the bad, we will never, ever, ever get solutions enough to fix the bad. And we'll talk about that at the end of this episode. But it is hard. Even if you are a great leader and a great technician, you got a great team, doing sterile processing right is hard. It's very complex. It requires a lot of moving pieces. It requires investment and support from a lot of different teams, not just your C-suite, but your facilities teams, your operating room teams, your vendor partners, on and on and on it goes. It really has to be a unique scenario when all the pieces of the puzzle line up and you've actually got that high functioning, high quality sterile processing department that we all want. Okay, so let me just state that and say, I know 99.9% of y'all out there want a great department, and you want that department across town to be a great department. We all want that. It's not like anyone is out there saying, oh yeah, like screw that. I don't want high quality. I don't want my patients to be safe. Like I want all of us to be at risk. No one is out there doing that in this role. So I get that. And I know, again, there's a lot of great leaders and technicians that are wrapped up in a department that is challenged, is one of those 95% of departments that we would say, yeah, I don't trust that department. Like some of y'all would say that about your own department, not because you're not trying. Okay. I want you to hear that, managers and technicians. It's not because you're not trying or you don't want to have a great department that your department may be systemically challenged, like really dropping the ball on quality. It's not because you don't want to and you're not trying, but we've got to start the same place that Alcoholics Anonymous starts, right? To stand up and say, I have a problem. Because until we admit to ourselves that we have the problem in a department that we can control, we're never going to take that next step to start solving the problem. And the reason that I started this poll in the way that I did is to give everybody a little break and say, hey, let's talk about someone else to kick off this conversation. Let's talk about another department and say, is there another department out there that you don't trust? But if you look at the stats, pure numbers says that there's likely people out there who would look at your department and say, it's one of the ones that I would never go to or don't know enough about, and it still kind of scares me, or you've got certain people in your department that I just would not trust with my surgical tray. And we all know how that plays out. It's those technicians that if we've got a surgery or if our family has a surgery, right? How many stories have you heard where, oh yeah, there's a sterile processing technician who's a mother or father, and their child has a procedure, and they process the trays for their child or for their family member, right? Why do they do that? It's primarily because they don't trust everyone in that process the same way that they trust themselves, right? They know something about their coworkers that causes concern for the quality of trays that their family members could use, right? That is understandable. It's completely understandable. I worked with people and I knew people in my departments that I would not trust to process my trays. And yet every day they clocked in and they worked for me. We tried our best to create processes that would protect the patient from the quality challenges that these individuals had, but they still were there and they were still processing, for all the reasons that everyone knows. If these lower performers or quality challenge technicians out there continue to work in our departments. But the truth of the matter is that the hot take for this conversation is if we know people that we wouldn't trust to do our trays, that is a problem for our patients, for us, for our departments, for our industries. That 22%, let me pull this back up. Okay, 19% that don't trust certain people in the industry, even though there would be other people in that department that they would trust. What about the patients that are going to get those trays? What about them? Okay, let me take some comments here. I've been seeing a handful of these come through, and I don't want to pass up this opportunity here. Okay, we got a shout out here from Ken, and a cross shout out back from Mark to Ken, and a shout out to Nathan Cody. Man, everybody's giving each other a lot of love here. All right, great. Got someone tuning in here from Morocco. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so here we get into some of the meat of the comments section. I'm going to give Lars an opportunity to kind of weigh in here. So there are concerns about other sterile processing quality levels patients do not know, but if most patients get out of surgery okay, how would we know if it's really able to trace back to sterile processing? What's the hard data, and is that not registered in most cases? Okay, so Lars is bringing up the $1 million question. Sometimes the multi-million-dollar question, what's the cause of our surgical site infections? What is the cause of our healthcare acquired infection, HAIs? And you're right, you're getting at a real breakdown in the hard data. And this cuts both ways, right? We don't have enough hard data to clearly point, for most cases, that a surgical site infection came directly from a dirty instrument. Now, that doesn't stop a lot of attorneys out there from trying to make the case, and it doesn't stop them from doing it convincingly for a judge and a jury. There are lawsuits happening all the time related to dirty instrumentation and infections in a hospital setting. That happens all the time. There's hundreds of them probably ongoing right now as we speak. So attorneys will keep on pushing it because it's common sense, right? So I'm totally with you there. Like, I want the data. I would love the data. The data would be great for us to make these arguments. But just because the data is not there, common sense says that a patient is not signing up to have a surgical procedure with a scissor that has residual blood, with a rongeur that has residual bone from a previous patient. No one, at least in the American healthcare setting, is signing up knowingly putting themselves under dirty instrumentation. So that much we know. However, the opposite can't be proven. You can't prove that these devices are not transmitting these bugs and these microbes into the surgical site, because what's also going on is we're using antibiotics prophylactically and assuming that anytime we open someone up, there's going to be bugs that are getting in there. And so we're making sure that we give drugs to the patient to protect them, not only from potentially dirty sterile processing processes and surgical instruments, but any other break in the sterile field, right? And that's a problem, huge problem. This is why this is the multi-million-dollar question, is how long are those drugs going to last? How long can we continue to fight the bugs with these antibiotics if the antibiotics are getting less and less powerful and active to fight? The bugs are getting stronger and the drugs are getting weaker. And that's why, again, we've got to solve this question on quality before we can even move forward as an industry. All right. We've got another comment here from Alessandra, and I'm going to pick up. Until we stop settling for Band-Aids, we will continue to suffer catastrophic damage. The truth will set you free. So this is coming from someone, again, this is what I love about this network. We're insiders, right? We're not talking to people on the outside looking in at this industry. We're not talking about journalists necessarily. We're not even talking about like nurses and surgeons. We're talking about people in it who have seen it, who have done it, who have seen the impact, who have seen the uh-ohs or the kabooms that really cause a major issue in our facilities. And we're talking about all the ones that never actually make it on anyone's radar, but we figured it out, right? Here's a great example. It's very technical, so if you're not in sterile processing, you might not be able to follow this, but I'll try to bring it down. Every device has a validated, a scientifically tested set of instructions. We call them instructions for use in sterile processing. So every medical device has that. How many times in your department have you got a medical device, let's just say, like these sunglasses here, right? And you realize, oh yeah, we've owned these sunglasses for 5 years, but did y'all know that we're actually supposed to be taking this kind of nose piece apart? And everyone looks around and they're like, we've been processing those sunglasses for 5 years. And to our knowledge, that nose piece has never come off. Any surgery, any reprocessing, anytime, it's never come off. Y'all, let's be honest, hot take number 12 here. That's reality. That happens all the time. And it probably happens even more often in departments that are trying to push their quality forward. It's more common in those departments for folks to find these missing links in the reprocessing chain and to own it. Because if it takes a backbone to admit, oh, yeah, that device for 5 years, every surgery, every time has been compromised because we were not even following a clearly delineated step in the device manufacturer's instructions for use for cleaning and reprocessing. We never took that piece apart. Systemic across our entire industry. I have challenged a couple of site leaders before to say, hey, if you think your department is flawless, right, you have no quality issues to tackle, I will come in and give you a free assessment. I'll fly in for free. I'll do the assessment for free. And as long as I don't find anything, then it'll remain free. The only time that you would have to pay is if I actually surfaced a major quality issue. I'm not talking about, oh, yeah, like a policy update or whatever. I'm talking a major quality issue. Now, to this day, no one's taken me up on that offer. I'm not really in the mood to fly these days. I'm not putting that offer out on the table. But the reason I put that in there is because I know this is our story, ladies and gentlemen. This is the sterile processing world. This poll with the 95% of us who say, yeah, we don't trust every department in the industry. Yes, it should be shocking for everyone else outside of sterile processing, but no one inside is surprised. I guarantee you, no one's going to see that poll and say, oh man, I really thought that we were doing a much better job. Because if you're honest about your own department and the own struggles that you've gone through or the departments that you've worked in, you know, this is our life. Okay, let me take a couple more comments here, and then I'm going to get into another section of this practical application, right? Because one of the challenges with our industry is we have started to like to talk. That's great. Okay, 5 years ago, we didn't really like to talk to each other. We didn't like to talk outside of the conference environment. We didn't like to talk outside of the magazine articles, but now we like to talk. There's a lot of us that are talking about a lot of things today. And that part's good. But there's a challenge with talking, and it's that you know where I'm going with this. It's only talking. It's talking and then putting a period instead of a comma. I want to talk today, and I want to put a comma, and then I want y'all out there to start doing something to break this quality breakdown chain, right? To break the chain, to reset, and start building toward a model that you can trust your own department and you can trust every department in your city. Because if all of y'all trusted every department in your city, you know what? You would trust every department in the whole freaking country and eventually the whole world, because that's how departments work, right? They scale out. So you got to start first with trusting your own, but you can't only trust your own for all the reasons that we've talked about before. You don't know where you're going to end up. You don't know where your family's going to end up, but you know, strangers, regardless of it's you or your family, strangers are getting surgery in those departments that you've just told us you don't trust. And as a healthcare provider, as a sterile processing technician, you have committed your career to protecting those who can't protect themselves. And there is no greater example of those that are in those other departments that we know have quality challenges. All right, I'm going to throw up a couple of these here. Okay, so Becky Kinney says, but do we need hard facts to know this issue is very real? Yeah, that's what you were talking about earlier, Becca. I think we do eventually need some facts, and I think the facts are coming. There's been more and more research that's been published in recent days on topics such as the impact of reprocessing on surgical implants, for instance. But we need a lot more of that to drive the needle publicly. We do need public support, and we talk about that a lot on the Beyond Clean podcast. This is not a battle that we can fight ourselves and win. We've got to have the public tuned in, understanding the challenges, and in some sense, afraid. We need to strike a little bit of godly fear, right, or just realistic fear into the hearts and minds of all these folks that are paying for healthcare, paying for health insurance, getting these procedures, but in these departments that need more support, more staffing, more investment, all the things that we've continue to talk about week after week and month after month. But we need public support in order to do that. And honestly, that's one of these things that these live feeds is trying to get. like the random Joe out there that's like, what is this thing about sterile processing? What's this hot take thing about? Oh, wow, I had no idea, and I got a hip replacement that's coming up next week. Is the hospital I'm going to safe? Like, start asking some questions. That's what we need the public to start doing. Okay, so let me pop up a couple of others here. Got a question here from Veronica Holder. Do you know some facilities that don't care about quality or just want quality? And yeah, as I said before, there are departments out there that are trying, right? They're not sitting out there and they're saying, I don't care at all about my patient. And typically, there's a quote, and a paraphrase I'm going to butcher here, but the quote is, it doesn't, for bad men to conquer, it doesn't take anything besides the silence of good men. So to apply that to this scenario, for quality breakdowns and quality challenges to continue in our industry, it's not about bad people out there that are trying to do bad things with the quality. It's about those of us who know, not doing and not talking and not promoting the change, not being real about the challenges. It's those of us who know that often allow all of this to continue. And it's easy, again, in an industry that has been neglected for decades through lack of recognition and lack of investment. It's very easy to want to focus all of our attention on recognizing, on getting more investment, on the good things, And again, I keep saying this. I like good things. I like encouragement. I love recognition. We do need it. We deserve it as an industry. But if we don't talk about these things and only talk about the other things, these things are not going to go anywhere. And we're going to be recognizing facilities and leaders that deep down inside, everyone else who works there knows, oh, goodness. Yeah, if they only knew about that medical device that we just found out have not been processed correctly for the last 5 years, we wouldn't have got that award, or we wouldn't got that feature. No, we all know. Everybody, from the biggest name in sterile processing with the biggest title, all the award-winning sterile processing departments, we know how complex and quality challenged our industry is, from department to department to department. We know those things. The question is, what are we going to do about them? All right. I'm going to pop up here one more question, and then I'm going to go back to my soapbox that I mentioned. I'm going to start to my soapbox here as we move closer to close. We'll go about another 15, 20 minutes here before we wrap up. Okay. Got a question here. How much of these challenges are related to the devices and equipment, or is it mainly dependent on human error? All right, if you're tuning in, I'd love to get your perspective on that question. Is this a device-related question, equipment-related question, or is it really a people problem? And my answer is going to be both. I think, as I alluded to before, a majority of our departments have been neglected. And they've been neglected in both the people area, but also the equipment and the product area. And that has implications all the way around the workflow and the process. So if your department is neglected in terms of equipment for water quality, you have subpar water quality, that water quality is going to impact your instruments. Now, even if you're buying very expensive instruments, top of the line, if you've got poor water quality, that's going to have a negative impact. But if you've got poor water quality and you've got poor equipment, our instrumentation, if you're buying kind of middle of the line or bottom of the line instrumentation, that's just going to continue to steamroll more and more and more. If you're in a department that has poor equipment, poor quality of water, and poor staffing, you're getting closer and closer to that recipe for a front page news article for some major quality breakdown because all these stars are aligning as it relates to quality concerns. And so I guess I can say it can be either one of those, but it's often a combination of both. And it doesn't ultimately come down to the leader. And this is something that I've said in various contexts, like sometimes, yes, it's all about the leader. Like one leader can turn an entire place around. And it's true. One good leader can take the bull by the horns and turn it all around, can turn the big ship around, can be the rudder and just turn it all back to the direction it needs to go. Now, they can't do it all themselves. They can start the direction shift, but one leader by themselves cannot save the whole department, cannot change the whole culture. You've got to start building that buy-in inside in that team. So in that sense, like one person, one people issue can be part of the solution. But for instance, a leader can only do so much if they have no investment to invest in the right equipment or the right products or the right water treatment. All those things are separate from a people issue. But if you don't have the right leader that's even asking the questions or trying to get the investment or to do so in a way that's effective, and yeah, like you're not going to overcome the kinds of quality challenges that we're talking about. Okay, so I know all of you are sitting around wondering, what is Hank's soapbox? And I'll make you wait no more. All right, the double stacking of loaner trays. The double stacking of loaner trays. Now, if you're out there in sterile processing world and I just got you. If you're like, oh, that hurt, Hank. You're right. Double stacking my loaner trays is a problem. Hang here with me because I'm going to pull in some other folks to also get them. Okay. If you're a C-suite leader and you're tuning in today, which I know many of y'all RSVP'd on the invite, if you are increasing your volume of orthopedic and of neuro cases, but you're not necessarily increasing your equipment capacity or the number of pieces of equipment that you have there to wash and disinfect these loaner instruments, let me tell you a little secret. This is the hot take. This is the soapbox. There is likely some compromising going on at the point of automated washing of your loaner trays. I'm just going to be honest. There is likely non-compliance in the washing of your loaner trays at this point of the washer. So let me tell everyone out there who doesn't know how this works, and then everyone who has seen this or done this, you're just going to have to hang in for the next step. We get 8, 16, 24, 32, 50 loaners for the next day. We've got all the instruments that came down from today's surgical cases that are still flowing through decontam when we've got 2 washers. And let's just be a little conservative and say each load in a washer takes an hour. It's very easy to do the math, how many loads you can get through in 8 hours of the washer. Now, depending on what type of manifold you're using in the washer, and that's the thing with the little shelves, you can only put so many devices on a shelf on the manifold to go in per load. So if you get 1 load per hour, got 8 hours, that's 8 loads. And then to keep the math simple again, let's say that you can put 10 trays in per load. So 10 times 8 hours is 80 times 2 washers is 160. It'd be easy if anyone wanted to do the math from the C-suite to figure out, wow, can we, just with the capacity that we have today, Can we safely and compliantly push through all of the loaners, not to mention all the instrumentation, but all the loaners that we're bringing in for tomorrow's procedure? And if the math doesn't add up, I can tell you right now, it's still getting through the washer, because if there's one gift that sterile processing technicians have, we have a way of getting it done, regardless of how many people you give us, how much equipment you give us or don't give us. We have a way of getting it done. But that, my friends, and I want to speak specifically to you technicians out there, getting it done is one of the reasons that we are in the place that we're in today. We've gotten so good at getting it done with lack of resources and staffing and equipment that now our C-suite look at us as if that's the department that can get it done. On a shoestring budget, yeah, they'll get it done. On skeleton staffing, yeah, they'll get it done. Increasing surgical volume without any impact to the department in terms of equipment, yeah, they'll get it done. We have got to stop getting it done. We've got to stop getting it done in ways that are incongruous with the quality expectations that are on our shoulders. We cannot compromise our quality any longer as an industry to get it done. And if I cannot stress this is systemic. This is not like Hank's story time about this one department that I heard of this one time. Hundreds of departments, if not thousands of departments, this very day, this very week, with procedures that are going to your loved ones and to complete strangers. They're going to be done on loaner trays that were stacked multi-level in an automated washer that has not been validated to clean those trays in that way. That is going on. And friends, we have got to find a way to stop it. In this conversation, on this live stream, any influence, any impact that you have in any department in your city, if you're a technician, if you're a supervisor, educator, manager, director, vendor, the C-suite, an operating room nurse, go down on this busy orthopedic day, on this busy neuro day, go down into Decontam and watch or ask questions and get them off to the corner and say, just be honest with me. Cut the crap. Don't get it done any longer. Tell me, do you have enough washer capacity today to support the volume to compliantly load these washers and these trays in this equipment? And you, depending on what perspective you're coming from, you may or may not be shocked at the answer. But I'll tell you right now, I will not be shocked, because I know this is going on, and I know it's one of the contributing factors to this poll. And I know we've had a lot of folks here join in the last few minutes. So let me bring this poll back up and just tell you what I'm referencing. This is the poll. 95% of this network said they do not trust every sterile processing department in their city. 95%. And again, I think a large part of that goes back to this one topic. Now, there's a lot of other topics, and just like Jake McHugh said at the top of this episode, there may be 100 episodes of Hot Takes that we dive in to individual topics in this category of quality and compliance in sterile processing. But double stacking of your loaner trays is a big one. And this is not just, again, like for those of you in the department who have seen this, I'm not just talking about multiple individual trays stacked on top of each other. That's bad enough. Like, we've probably all seen pictures of that. You got like 16 loaner trays where the top is on. So let's just start there. Take the top off of your loaner tray. If you're on the clean side today and you get a loaner tray come through the wash and the top is on, send that puppy back. Stop the line, send it back. If your manager has an issue with you, cue this up and make them set their happy little butt down for an hour and listen to me talk about why these quality compromises have to stop. That's number one. Take the freaking lid off of these loaner trays and stop sending them through the wash with the lid on top. Okay, stop getting it done. Number two, if it's a multi-level vendor tray, which means you open up the top, but then you can open up an insert, and you got two different inserts, two different levels in that loaner tray. Those levels need to be coming through your automatic washer and on separate parts of the manifold, separate parts of the shelf. If that's not happening, and you're on the clean side, and you get a loaner tonight or tomorrow, and it's got two levels still put together, coming through the wash, stop the compromise. Send it back and ask whoever's on the dirty side to do it for you again, because that is not a validated cleaning mechanism for these trays. They're not built to be washed, put together. I know. Listen. I know, because I've had these conversations with folks in Decontam with a mountain of trays behind them, and they're looking at me like, Hank, we would never get done. We would never get done unless I put the trays through stacked, and I put these multi-levels through stacked. Well, there's a reason that 95% of the sterile processing network today does not trust every hospital in their city. It's because we're compromising and doing things like that put patients at risk. Stop screwing around, right? Don't let anyone pressure you into doing something that you know is wrong by your conscience. You know it is not right to put these trays through that way. You wouldn't want your tray or your family's tray shoved through just to get it through. You would not want that. And if you're a leader and you're making your technicians do that, just to get done, just to make the OR happy, just to make the C-suite happy, quit your job today. You're in the wrong profession. We've got to start drawing the quality line to recover the trust that we need to have in our own industry to match this misplaced trust that patients have. Because by and large, the majority of patients are expecting safe surgery. They're expecting quality in these hospitals, but there's a misalignment. 95% of us say, no, we don't trust everyone. Probably 95% of our patients say, oh yeah, like I would trust I'm going to get safe surgical care in these facilities. We've got to start taking tangible action and stop compromising just to get it done. And I think, again, that it starts with stopping the stacking of these loaner trays, the double stacking in these washers. Okay, let me take a couple more quotes here. Okay, so we got a great comment here from Jesse. Aside from double stacking, let's not forget that the IFU of many of these loaners state that the devices must be cleaned separate from the sterilization tray provided. Bingo, man, you are stirring the pot on this one. Thank you for bringing that up, Jesse. That's a great point. And related to this, you may be shocked if you look at a lot of your laparoscopic devices on how many of those have specific instructions for connecting those devices into a manifold that can flush during the automated washing process. So if you don't have a manifold that can flush or connect to those, and you have devices that require in your IFU, you're in a bit of a quality pickle, as they say. All right. I got a couple more comments here. One from James Neal. Quantitative metrics are needed for resources versus labor. That is a huge point. We got to be able to do the math. Just like I was saying, it's not that difficult to look at your surgery schedule, to look at the incoming loaners, to look at your capacity of your equipment, writing down those numbers. A lot of us in leadership and even at the technician level, we're kind of afraid to do the math because we know what the math is going to say. Because if we don't do the math, then we can kind of live in this gray area of like ignorance is bliss. But if we sit down on paper and say, yeah, there's no way that my team is compliantly getting this done. So you may not know as a manager or director how they're getting it done, how those trays are coming through, but just by the math, you can tell we've got too much volume for not enough capacity in our washers. So where is it going off the track? Do the math as a leader and then use that math to start getting some resources and some labor to push back against this. All right, so Sean Flynn says, as a leader, one should be doing daily observational rounds, which include time in decontamination during peak times. You will see how instruments are received, equipment, all the equipment failures, bottlenecks, and staffing needs. Sean, that's a great point. It's getting in there and seeing what's going on as a leader, and not just department leader, but C-suite leader, operating room leader, getting there and measuring, like staying there for a while, right? We're not talking about like a 5-minute little walkthrough. Oh yeah, like a lot of shiny things and I hear some buzzing, so everything must be going okay. No, watch what's going on and watch what that volume looks like from that 12 to 2 period, like Alessandra mentioned, or even later, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, all the way into the evening because some of these loaners are getting dropped off. There's so many issues that are just going through every single day that are not getting surfaced, not getting measured, and not being taken care of that are causing this disconnect of trust in our industry. Okay. As we move to wrap here, I do want to let all y'all know that if you've got an idea for a future Hot Takes episode, please shoot me an email to hank@beyondclean.net, or feel free to drop your idea in the comments section below, and we'll take a look at it for Hot Takes episode number 2. And there will be more soapboxes. Like I said, it's double stacking of loaners, such a specific issue in our industry, but has major implications that can be multiplied by hundreds. And that's what I want to do in this series, is really drill down to these things that we know are happening, but maybe some of us are a little afraid to say anything about it or to really be honest about it, to be unscripted about it and talk about the implications, not only for us in our department, but again, for the entire industry and the patients at the other end of these devices. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today, and I want to give a little shout out to the new Sterile Processing micro credential that just released a month or 2 ago through Beyond Clean. This is a great opportunity to dive deep down into the topics that we're talking about today. The theme of this first micro credential is cross-contamination. And what's unique about this program is it's specifically built to tie in a collaborative approach to the challenges of cross-contamination of medical devices. So it's built to teach sterile processing folks, operating room folks, supply chain vendors, whoever has any input into this process. That micro credential is really created to bring them deeper understanding and insight on what are the challenges, and from that, what kind of solutions can we bring to the table. I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for hanging out for a whole hour on this first Hot Takes with Hank Balch. I appreciate your time. Thank you for all that you do out there for patient safety. It is my mission, and I want it to be your mission, to change that 95% from not trusting every department in your city to 95% or more. Complete total trust, to know what's going on over there, to support it, and to believe in it for every patient, every surgery, every time. That should be our industry mission, to return trust and dependability to sterile processing. I think we can do it here in the US. I think we can do it all over the globe, but we cannot do it alone. We can't do it by just talking about it. So I'll challenge you today to go out there and do something about it. Until next time, keep fighting dirty, and we'll talk to you again soon.